Okay.
Thank you.
I need one more thing. Can you go give me the glass, Bella?
Huh?
The glass one. Look, it's over there on the table.
Teddy?
Yeah,
Teddy's pretty heavy.
I noticed. Hurry up, go get the glass thing. Hey, good morning, fam. It's been a while, but there's something that I absolutely have to address this morning. I think I addressed it, but it was on my TikTok platform, so nobody pretty much, other than the folks who follow me on there and who are loyal followers of mine on pretty much on my platforms, know what the hell I'm saying. Where's the remote, Bella? Don't turn it up, okay? So a couple of different things. Number one, Disney has recently politicized a lot of their movies, and I don't know if you grown ass folk out there realize that. I don't think very many of you do. They have heavily politicized their movies. They have put hidden messages that are coded because Disney is the founder of that company is a pedophile. Okay, that's the biggest issue that I have. He had been grooming and abusing children for I don't know how long, and just kind of keeping them in that arena. Because, well, what's the pretense to fame? Let me see. You got to sell your soul. You got to sign a binding contract with the devil himself, and that's so that you get the money, you get the home, you pretty much get the riches of the world, right? And so that's the biggest issue that I'm having here. That they are having these young children or pre-adolescents and adolescents themselves. Some are grown and some are not. I can tell you a little bit about how I used to model as a young woman. I auditioned for an agency that was it was supposed to be strictly for modeling for Disney. Now, I was like, okay, that's a cool opportunity. See, but in my head, I wasn't really thinking about what all went behind it. See, and my mom was kind of brain dead as well. She basically had no idea what she was kind of aiding me in and walking me into. See, there's a very, very spiritual component, and oftentimes I feel like parents make that big mistake of walking their kids into these opportunities without fully understanding what they're walking their children into. So, I'm going to share my experience. So, when I was, what was it? I was about 19 years old when I had auditioned for a modeling agency through Disney. I went, I auditioned, I got the part, I came home. I don't do that, Bella. I was told the following day that I would have to have $5,000 because that $5,000 was gonna pay for all the outfits that I was to get. It was gonna pay for my makeup. It was gonna pay for me to professionally go have my hair done, etc. And on top of that, there's a school that they run, and that modeling school is where they were going to place us into. However, I had already previously had experience in modeling because that's when I was younger. That's what I used to do. Now I never made it to no Ivy League, agencies and this and that and the other, but I was around, so I was content with that. There were a couple of commercials I did. I really went through the works. And I will tell you, one of the most difficult things that I had ever experienced was to do a commercial because you are made to not have a script in front of you. There's a teleprompter, which it's like a freaking small TV, and you have to be able to read the words on there. And if you don't, they'll disband you. They'll put you out. So I can tell you, as a person who was potentially going to go through all that, it's a very dark arena on a spiritual level. I passed my audition. Everything was great. Everybody was so excited. This, that, and the other. And then when I learned that I had to put down $5,000 just in order to go to the school, for the outfits and the makeup and my hairstyling, that's when I took an issue with it, because I in that moment was when I realized, wait, hold up. They're not doing it because they want to give kids an opportunity. They're doing it to take advantage of them. Number one, and number two, it was like at that time, none of these agencies are going to voice to you that this is a soul binding contract that you're walking yourself into. I don't know how I knew this, but I knew that something was really horribly off. I just seen the type of people that basically ran the auditions, the judges, some of the lead directors and things like that. And I was like, See, now keep in mind, this was a long time before I even came to Christ. This was during my time of, I was a prodigal child, I was running away and things like that. I hadn't quite found myself at that time. And what's the scariest thing to me is that my mom, while she viewed it as supporting me in my endeavors and in my dreams, because to be an independent model was the biggest thing I had going. At that time as a teenager, right? Because when you're young, you got it all. So I wanted to take, advantage of when I look decent, and I look good and I could pull it off, etc. And so I went audition, passed, and then in that moment, it was like I realized two major things. Number one, on a spiritual level, my mom had no idea what the heck she was walking me into, even though she was supportive of me and my endeavors. That doesn't mean on a spiritual level that she understood what she was walking me into. Somehow, after my audition, once I got that call that I was going to be having to pay $5,000, it was in that moment when I realized two major things. One, they're taking advantage of the children. Two, it was going to be a lot of selling your soul as a binding contract in order to just get into that industry. And for a lot of you people out there, y'all don't know what goes truly into these industries. For every major industry out there, and it doesn't matter if it's modeling, music, or acting, or sports for that matter, all of those industries are required to sign a soul binding contract. You're basically selling yourself to the devil, the real devil. Because I think in your guys' minds, excuse me, y'all are thinking that, it's this Hollywood-based fictitious character, this big, vicious, ugly thing that you're selling yourself to. No, it's not like that at all. It is an actual contract that you are signing with Satan, so that you obtain the money, so that you obtain the fame, and quick. And I can tell you, in that moment is when I realized what the heck was going on. I guess you could say I am one of the more fortunate ones, because I got out before it was too late. I just knew somehow in my heart things were not right. And I could pick up on that. And that to me was the most disturbing aspect of this all. Because none of these judges, none of these directors, none of these producers, nobody there was willing to speak truth. And that to me was another disturbing aspect of it all. They were like, oh my God, you got the part, Tiffany, congratulations. They'll hype you up.
His mom died.
But guess what? 24 hours later, you got the $5,000 check, and I was like, wait, hold up. I was never told I even had to have money. I was told to go on audition and, start modeling. Stop it. The most that I was told that I was going to do was I was going to be in commercials. which is why I was like, okay, modeling in commercials, why not? You know, you see these commercials on TV every day of the week. You know, you see these people on, TV. Um, you know, as a young person or as an adult at home on the other side of the screen, y'all don't think about it like that. But I can tell you first-handedly, they take advantage of kids big time and their parents because usually in the way it goes 9 times out of 10 the kid don't got $5,000 out of pocket in order for them to go, so they ask the parents to do so. Number one. Number two, like I said, you're literally selling yourself short because you're selling that contract that binds you to the devil. And like I had previously stated, it is to get the riches, the fame, the money, the popularity, I guess, to one extent you could say. And you are condemning your own soul and your own spirit. Without that acknowledgement, go help her. Almost. Without that acknowledgement that you're even doing that. See, I was content because back then I was a prodigal child myself. I hadn't been found just yet by God. And to me, that would have been just absolutely a horrific, horrendous mistake I could have made for myself and my family. Now, I'm not talking about my own children and my husband, no. Because at that time, I was single. I had no husband. No, Ellie, no. At that time, it was my brother, my sister, my mom, myself, and of course, my furry little dog. Um, See, but that would have been the biggest mistake I could have ever made. Now, I'm glad that I got to go through the process. I was, glad that I could audition. I'm, blessed because I passed it. But I realized a lot of messed up stuff. And part of that was, not yet, part of that was that you are required to sell your soul and sign that contract with Satan. Okay? Number two, a lot of these directors and producers and the folks that run the modeling agencies, this is what they don't tell you all out there in the mainstream public. These women and men who do modeling are deprived food. They're told things like, "Oh, you're too fat. You're getting ugly. Oh, you shouldn't eat." These are the awful, awful things that a lot of these folks will tell the models. I believe that it was until 2007 when plus size models were introduced. And that was kind of the inception of where petite and slightly heavy set women were beginning to be accepted into that arena. But it doesn't change the fact that they are taking advantage of parents. It will never change the fact that they are taking advantage of children, and that's a for sure fact. $5,000? Are you kidding me? And never mind that, but the spiritual aspect of it, you're hurting yourself. Because who is going to go with you to the grave? Nobody. Nobody gets to go with you but you. So you are condemning your soul and your spirit. Now, another YouTuber asked a doctor, what is more important, the soul or the spirit? And this doctor went on to say, well, the spirit is not bound to the body. It's free to roam. And that's absolutely correct. That was scientifically proven by a doctor from Russia. The soul is what is bound to you. That's why a lot of these dark workers are driven and drawn to get your soul in order to give you the riches of this world. And it is not okay. Go see what they're doing, please. Go see. Um, and so that was a real pivotal moment for me because I was like, well, one of two things. I can get taken advantage, used, and abused, and my mom can get taken advantage of and pay $5,000, or I can back out and be an independent artist
Remember
and model.
the
And
fireworks?
that's exactly what I ended up doing.
Remember the fireworks?
I ended up being an independent model for um, a short portion of my young life, but then I stopped. I was, in my prodigal years, I was going through those self realizations of who I was and who I wanted to be and how I wanted to be in the future because you can absolutely, mold yourself into what you want to be in the future. Now, what do I mean by that? I don't mean you can predict the future. I don't mean you can predict future problems and outcomes. No. I simply mean you can predict your future self of how you want to see yourself, how you plan to dress, how you plan to carry yourself, etc.
Look at the dimmer there.
Just be careful. So, my point in this vlog is to teach you guys how this industry functions. But the most disturbing aspect of it all is that it's not just modeling, it's acting, singing, music, whatever, and sports. All of them sell their soul and sign a contract. I'm blessed because I had that foresight to see that this was just an absolutely dark arena. And while I'm certainly proud of my heritage of being Colombian and Nicaraguan, I was never at any point gonna sell my soul. Now, one of the most miraculous things um, that happened to me was that years later, I met my husband. We got married. He was 22 and I was 21 at the time. And between his mom and my husband himself, go get the baby. Hurry up. Between my husband and my mom-in-law, and I had two mentors. That God, I adore these people, and I am immensely, immensely grateful for them. Because God knows my story, and I will get there. But hold up. So, when I first got married and engaged, no, I'm sorry, when I first got engaged to my husband, one of the things that he, shared with me at that time, he was like, are you a believer? Do you believe? And I was like, at this time, I was like, I don't have much sense of direction of faith at all. My mom was literally not a person of faith. She was so stuck in the world that there were 50 million different directions. And it was, really difficult for her to find her place. As a matter of fact, I'll go on and I'll say that I don't think she ever found her place. I think she is physically and spiritually wounded. And that's unfortunate and it's sad and heartbreaking. But things happen for a reason. And I firmly believe that. But when I got engaged to my husband, the biggest question he had asked me was, are you a believer? Are you a woman of faith? And I was like, no, but my eyes are wide open. Teach me, please teach me. I want to know. And so, he grabbed me by the hand and, he's like, as long as you are open and willing to accept, then yes, let's get married. Let's do it. And then that's the beginning of when my journey began. And actually, initially, for a good few years of my young life, I was a big time prodigal child. I was running all over the place, didn't really know my place. I was just chaotic, to say the least. And we moved to this place called Decatur Point, which is where my two wonderful mentors and ourselves lived. They lived on one side of the complex. We lived on the far opposite. And I'll tell you, man, there were countless times when when they knocked on my door And I would literally put my eldest daughter to answer. And I'm like, nope, tell them I'm gone. Tell them I'm at work. Do what you got to do. I'm not here. And then there was like, I think 3 occasions where I opened the door and I was like, nope, not interested. Because I thought, what are they doing? You don't really think. You don't really acknowledge. And so by the second and third time, I was like, something's going on. So by that third time, I was like, okay, fine, let me hear what they got to say. And they were like, look, we know that your family is in great need. And I was like, in great need of what? As would anybody, right? And they're like, you're in need of God. And I was like, huh? Because keep in mind, I was still a prodigal child. I was still learning. I was like a free spirit, essentially. And so, I kind of knew of the Lord because my mom-in-law and my husband. But then these two rolled around. And despite my stubbornness, despite my hard-headedness, and I'll acknowledge that, okay? That very final time, they're like, we're not leaving until we leave with you. And I was like, oh, crap. And so at that point, they said that they didn't care if we were in pajamas. They didn't care if we had regular clothes on. Hell, they didn't even care if we did our hair or not. That we were just to go to church, period. So I got my babies ready. I got my daughters ready because at that time it was the 3 of us girls. And at that time, we hopped in the truck and we're like, all right, where are we going? But we had full confidence that these were decent people. We knew that. Got in their truck. They took us to church. And then all of a sudden, my husband was like, I got a retreat to go on. And I'm like, what the heck retreat are you talking about? And I'm like, I'm not going to let you go by yourself because I have a weird feeling. So we ended up paying about $250. We got sleeping bags. We got all kinds of goodies, that we believed at that time that we needed. And it was a spiritual retreat. And honestly, now that I look back at it, I think that was the best decision that my husband and I could have ever made in our literal entire lives. I was pushed to nail myself to a cross, like an actual cross, like a wooden cross. They had us write down everything we had gone throughout our lives. So on my cross, you could see there was a line of abuse, physical and domestic. I used to curse people out a lot, when they would piss me off. I was depressed. That was another thing that I faced often in my life. But a lot of my depression stemmed from the fact that my parents divorced at a young age. I was only a baby. And so it kind of drove me to a dark place. And glory be to God that I found God and that I'm finally in a better place now. And this is why I'm sharing my experiences with y'all so y'all can see how good God is and how quick and fast and good He can be in your life as well. I know one of the things that I had to nail to the cross was the attempted suicide that I had years ago. Brought to you and by part of all the abuse that I had struggled with. Because during that time, I was so afflicted, so hurt, so confused, and I felt to some extent almost lost. And so I nailed everything to that cross that day. And honestly, I think surrendering the anxiety, the depression, the thoughts of suicide, all the fighting and, letting all of that go. Nailing it to a cross. Nailing all of my mistakes. Go outside and play. Nailing everything I had faced in my life. All the strife, all the sadness, all the heartbreak. All of that. Nailing it to a cross. Those are this long list of sins that I had committed through my life. And whether y'all want to acknowledge this or not, Depression is a stronghold. It is a chain that binds and locks you and holds you. It's a sin to be stuck in darkness. It's not a good place to be. And I'm not sharing these things that are personal about me with y'all because I have to. I am doing it merely as a testimony of my soul being redeemed and saved. And then we'll get to the juicy topics. But I nailed all of that to the cross. And then shortly after that, I guess there was a spiritual component of marriage that my husband nor myself had acknowledged before. So even though I was just in my regular clothes, and even though my husband had just, his t-shirt and his jeans, we were asked to go before a large crowd of people. And we were made to get remarried in front of all of these people. And there was actually a clergy person to do it. And at that time, I was like, dude, come on. You're not in a tuxedo. I don't got a gown. It just doesn't feel right. But if this is what God is ordaining, if this is what is in these people's heart, to have us spiritually renew our vows, I was like, why not? I might look 50 shades of ridiculous and whatever else. Who cares? No makeup, just ordinary clothes and shoes. Who cares? We got on that stage. We redid our vows. And I think that made a very big impact. Because all y'all mainstream folk out there are forgetting marriage is a covenant that you don't just make between you and your husband or you and your wife. You go before God, the great I am, the one who is, was, and will always be. So that is a lesson for your soul and your spirit today. The marriage is consecrated and sacred. And all these people of the world who are trying to step all over it, who are trying to make it look and appear as something that it is not, those people are probably spiritually wounded and not in a position to show. Period. And so, enough with this process and my testimony, but I want to share these things with you guys so that you learn how ill-intended these industries truly are, so that you guys can look at your TV screen and wonder why these models are so skinny and why they look so sick. And one thing that I left out was that a lot of these models in the industry, they're not given methods on how to cope with their emotions when they get, denied food, when they get denied water, when they get denied remedial needs. Oftentimes they get hooked on, meth. They get hooked on big time drugs because that is their only form of coping. Alcohol is another big one in these industries because these folks are not given tactics as to how to cope with how ill-intended these industries are. And when you walk into it, it looks like the other side of the green grass. And then when you realize that you're in it, you're like, oh crap. And it's too late. That's why I chose to be an independent artist. That is why I chose to do modeling independently of all of them. Because I want to show the world that you do not have to sell your soul to be a model, to be a singer, to be a performer, whatever your dream is. If it's acting, you don't got to do that either. You can still act, you can still sing, you can still model, you can still perform. You can do it all without the help of these elite scumbags. Yes, I said it. No, I don't take it back. And I don't regret it. Well, let's get to the juicy topic. Enough with the whole agencies and this and that and the other. So Disney had just recently, I would say, reconstructed the Little Mermaid movie. Okay. Um, no, no. So, Little Mermaid had recently reconstructed the lead actress and depicted her as this. The girl, honestly, she looks like she's from the Caribbean. She has, dreadlocks, but a lot of people will say that she's African or Afro American, whatever. And we can go on for hours about it. To me, honestly, she looks like she's from the Caribbean. Uh, but she has dreadlocks. Her hair is still red. She still got the purple bra. And I just watched a commercial of it. And what really kind of did it for me was that Flounder and the bird, Sebastian, and I believe Flounder is the bird and Sebastian is the crab, right? So, either way, the one bird was singing, but he wasn't like truly singing the song. He was like trying to rap, which I'm like, look, they literally reconstructed the whole freaking movie. There was never no rap in the original. There was never none of that. It was just, traditional music, traditional composers. Um, and the real mermaid was Caucasian. But this just goes to show you how when the Democratic Party or the far left extremists push for a narrative to be passed, they get it done. And that can be a bit problematic at times. But in this instance, I feel like they are politicizing and racially fueling the Little Mermaid movie as a way to cause racial division, to create um, racism within the community. I feel like the bird rapping was a little bit ridiculous and outlandishly out of context because the original bird, he just sings and he's kind of dumb, but that's about it. They have taken it so far out of context, it's almost disgusting. Why did they reconstruct a movie to fit the leftist extremist narrative? Now, there's Democrats, Republicans, Independent, Green Party, and so on. I don't give a damn what party you walk with. Because to me, it's like nothing. I'm not big with politics anyway. So I don't care. But when you are pushing this narrative on children, it becomes my problem. I am a freedom fighting patriot. So therefore, I will fight for the freedom of children no matter what state they live in, no matter their age, etc. And definitely their racial background. Because the color of our flesh should not define how humanity, looks at each other. I'm going to say it louder for the dummies in the back. The color of our skin should not define how our children look at each other, period, or the world at large. But unfortunately, racism and racist people will be there no matter what. But I'll tell you one and two for certain. Disney is not going to be permitted to cause racial division amongst children and adults, and much less politicize a damn cartoon. I said this on my TikTok and I'm saying it here. Disney should be disgusted by their actions. That they are causing racial division with children. And for you kids out there who, if you, whatever, I don't know how old you are, but if you are a child, a little kid, like my nieces and nephews, and you be watching my content, Disney is wrong for doing what they did. They should not be teaching you guys to be racist. Color and different color skin is beautiful, and that should be embraced and taught throughout the world. There are so many different races out there, so many different cultures, and so much to learn from. Shame on you, Disney Channel, for making and redoing a movie to show that you agree with racism and you want to fit a narrative of these politically fueled nonsense. You guys should back out and back out while you can. It's not okay. It won't be tolerated and it will never be accepted. Stop teaching children that racism is acceptable and okay. Period.
Yeah. I got a puppy dog.
But